4 a.m. on a Tuesday, federal agents in 14 states kicked in doors simultaneously. They had been watching for 18 months, 58 arrests, 60 victims rescued, millions of dollars in laundered cash frozen. What they found inside wasn't just a crime ring, it was a perfectly constructed empire, hidden in businesses your neighbors go to every day. This is how it all fell apart in one single night. To understand the sheer magnitude of this bust, you have to forget everything you think you know about organized crime. You need to stop picturing street-level gangs in dark alleys. The architect of this $2 billion empire, a man we will call Elias, didn't own a weapon. He didn't have tattoos. He had a master's degree in finance and wore tailored charcoal suits. Elias understood that the biggest risk in the criminal underworld wasn't the police, it was the money. If you make $100 million illegally, you can't just put it in a bank. You have to wash it. And Elias was the greatest laundryman the modern underworld had ever seen. For 5 years, Elias operated in total untouchable silence. His criminal perspective was arrogant but entirely justified. He looked at the United States economy and saw a massive exploitable machine. He built a network of front businesses that were so unbelievably boring, no federal auditor would ever look twice. We are talking about hundreds of suburban laundromats, strip mall nail salons, regional vending machine routes, and cash-only diners. Here is exactly how his flawless system worked. A violent cartel operating across the border needed to legitimize massive piles of dirty cash. They would deliver millions in duffel bags to Elias' local couriers. Elias would then digitally divide that cash into thousands of microscopic, daily deposits across his network of boring suburban businesses. A local diner that actually served 50 customers a day would report that it served 500. The dirty cash was mixed with the legitimate register cash, taxed, and then deposited straight into a corporate bank account as clean, legal profit. Elias was a ghost. He insulated himself with layers of middle management. The cartels didn't even know his real name. He ran his syndicate exactly like a Fortune 500 company, complete with HR departments for his shell corporations and regional managers who had no idea they were actually working for a global crime syndicate. He was completely invisible. He was moving billions, and he truly believed he had beaten the system. But while Elias was busy admiring his untouchable empire, the FBI was already inside his walls. The downfall didn't start with a massive shootout or a dramatic cinematic betrayal. It started 18 months earlier with a typo. A low-level accountant working for one of Elias' shell companies in Ohio accidentally double-filed a tax return for a tiny, rundown car wash. The IRS flagged the anomaly and noticed that this single, broken-down car wash in a town of 3,000 people was supposedly generating $80,000 a week in pure cash profit. The IRS quietly handed the file to the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and this is where the perspective violently shifts. The FBI didn't immediately raid the car wash. They knew that if they kicked down one door, the masterminds would scatter into the wind. Instead, they initiated a highly classified, multi-agency sting known as Operation Phantom Net. The goal was unprecedented. Do not arrest a single person until you can arrest all of them at the exact same time. For the next 18 months, federal agents essentially built a parallel universe right on top of Elias' empire. They tapped over 200 different cell phones. They used high-altitude surveillance drones to track couriers moving duffel bags from state to state. Undercover agents spent months getting hired as janitors and cooks in Elias' front businesses just to plant microscopic listening devices under office desks. The FBI agents listening to these wiretaps were absolutely sickened by what they uncovered, because it wasn't just about the money. In order to keep the overhead low in these front businesses, Elias' syndicate had expanded into human trafficking. They were smuggling terrified, undocumented individuals into the country, confiscating their passports, and forcing them to work 16-hour shifts in the nail salons and industrial laundromats to keep the businesses looking operational. The FBI knew they were dealing with a ticking clock. Every day they waited to build the case, innocent people were suffering. But the Bureau needed the entire ledger. They needed the head of the snake. The breakthrough came on a rainy Thursday night. Elias made his one and only mistake. Frustrated by a delayed shipment of cash, he bypassed the security protocols and made a direct phone call from an unregistered burner phone to a regional manager. The call lasted exactly 42 seconds. The FBI's voice recognition software, scanning thousands of hours of intercepted audio, matched the vocal print. They triangulated the signal. They finally had an address for the ghost. He was living in a $12 million penthouse in Miami, completely hidden behind layers of corporate LLCs. Operation Phantom Net was officially greenlit. The logistics of what happened next represent the single largest synchronized law enforcement action of the decade. Over 1,000 heavily armed tactical agents across 14 different states were briefed in completely windowless rooms. They were ordered to leave their personal cell phones behind to prevent any leaks. The The targets were mapped out, 58 individuals, from the cartel bagmen in Texas to the corrupt accountants in New York, all the way up to Elias sleeping in his Miami penthouse. At exactly 3:58 a.m., the teams moved into position. The silence was deafening. At 4 a.m., the command was given. In 14 states, simultaneously, heavy steel battering rams shattered the silence. Let's go back to Elias. He is asleep in his penthouse. He thinks he is a billionaire genius. 4 a.m., his reinforced oak front door violently explodes off its hinges. Before he can even sit up in bed, his bedroom is flooded with blinding tactical flashlights, red laser sights, and the deafening screams of federal agents. Transition from absolute power to complete submission took less than 10 seconds. Across the country, the exact same scene played out 57 more times. Corrupt business owners were pulled out of their suburban beds. Couriers were dragged out of motels. Middle managers were handcuffed on their front lawns in front of their stunned neighbors. The simultaneous strike was so flawlessly executed that not a single target had time to flush a ledger, smash a hard drive, or make a warning phone call. The entire $2 billion network was completely decapitated in a matter of minutes. But what the FBI found inside these locations is what made international headlines. When agents breached the hidden back rooms of the nail salons and laundromats, they found the 60 victims. People who had been trapped for years in windowless basements, forced into modern-day slavery to keep a financial spreadsheet balanced. The agents provided immediate medical care and secured their safety, effectively dismantling one of the most horrific trafficking pipelines in the region. In Elias' penthouse, forensic accountants struck the ultimate gold mine. Hidden inside a hollowed-out safe cleverly disguised as a structural support beam, they found the master ledgers. We are talking about encrypted hard drives containing the entire financial history of the cartel's laundering operations. Every bribe, every front business, every fake deposit, meticulously documented by a man who thought he would never be caught. The government froze over $150 million in liquid assets by 8 a.m. that same morning. Elias, the man who thought he was a ghost, was dragged into federal court wearing a bright orange jumpsuit, completely stripped of his tailored suits and his power. Faced with the mountain of perfectly documented evidence his own arrogance had created, he folded. He pled guilty to racketeering, money laundering, and human trafficking. He was sentenced to life in a federal supermax prison with no possibility of parole. 57 other individuals arrested that night received sentences ranging from 10 to 40 years. Operation Phantom Net remains a legendary textbook case studied at the FBI Academy to this day. Proved that no matter how smart the criminal is, no matter how perfectly constructed the empire seems, it only takes one typo, one phone call, and one perfectly timed raid to bring it all crashing down. If you made it this far, hit that